if it's appealing to another owner, it's going to be appealing to you. So the positive side of having your business ready for sale, even if you never plan to sell it, is your quality of life is going to be much, much better. And your podcast is called Ignition Path. You want to talk about an ignition. If you're in that place and you've been working your tail off and you're not making as much money you should.
Welcome, everybody, to the Ignition Path podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Goodknight, and I've got another great guest today who's going to who will assist me in the entrepreneurial path discussion, because that's exactly what Marty Fahncke does with Westbound Road Entrepreneurial Services. Is he helps entrepreneurs do the next level of everything. Marty, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your path and how you got to where you were.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on your show, Kyle. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to talking today. So, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Had small businesses. I never had the proverbial lemonade stand, but I've done many other things over the years since then. When I was in my 20s, I started a business that went on to be acquired. Somebody called up and said, "Hey, I'd like to buy your business for, 7 figures, excuse me." Sorry about that. I got something in my throat. Um, and that led me down a path of a really interesting path of scaling businesses, both through really exciting marketing strategies as well as acquisitions. And so in the last 20 something years, I've had a lot of opportunities to buy businesses, start businesses, grow those businesses like crazy, many of them from zero to $5 or $10 million, several from $1 million to $30 million, and one of them from 80 to $600 million. And but also then exit those businesses for top dollars. So I'm here to kind of talk a little bit about that journey and how your listeners can do the same thing. For those who are wanting to grow and scale their businesses, going to talk a little bit today about how you can double your business without having to sell twice as much stuff. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to sell your business when the time is right for top dollar. And even if we have time, we can talk about why you should prepare your business for sale, even if you don't ever plan to sell it. So I'll let you kind of pick how you want that
Yeah,
conversation to go. But
there's a lot there. Yeah.
there's
So
lots
yeah.
of things we can talk about.
So just real quick with the whole podcast name. So prior to so you've been an entrepreneur. Were you ever, what did you go to school for? Your corporate world. Was there anything? Are you a financial planner prior? Like how did this come about, or was it just one thing after another that got?
It has been one entrepreneurial thing after another. I actually, I mean, the origins of the story is I was working in a great big call center that was taking calls for orders for infomercials way back in the day. And I was making minimum wage, which at that time was $3.35 an hour. And I was taking orders left and right and selling all sorts of stuff. And one day I added it up and I had sold $10,000 worth of products in an hour. And I was making $3.35. And I realized there's a big gap between those two numbers. And I wanted to figure out where that money was and how I could get myself a little piece of it. I was, young, newly married and had a young child. And I was like, somewhere there's money to be made here, an opportunity. And so I basically pulled myself up by my bootstraps and figured out where that money was being made, and kind of wound through the call center business into the infomercial business, home shopping, et cetera. And then when the internet came along, I said, the internet's basically a great big e-commerce platform, which was funny at the time because people weren't seeing that. When the internet first came out, selling stuff was actually kind of taboo. But I was one of the very first people to sell things on the internet. And I was actually the very first person to ever put a URL on an infomercial, which even that was very controversial at the time because it was all toll-free numbers. So people were kind of terrified of doing that. But I was the very first one to put a URL on an infomercial. And I've just been selling and marketing and innovating and ever since.
Awesome. Yeah, my first experience in infomercials was my mom and dad were actually featured on a Charlton Sheets infomercial.
Carlton Sheets, yep.
Yeah, Carlton Sheets. Yeah, back in the day, they owned 26 properties through his processes.
Okay,
And
that's
so
awesome.
because they were so successful at having so many properties acquired the way that he taught people how to do it,
Sure.
they invited mom and dad out. I was probably in high school, maybe, or like junior high, high school time frame. and they invited them out to someplace in, I think, maybe Arizona, and this huge, beautiful place where they filmed interviews, and
Hmm.
like it was just like, these are actors, like when you watch an infomercial, I'm like, those are actors, I bet you. Like, nope, like at least on that one, that was mom and dad talking about
Yeah.
what they did, and
That is so cool.
yeah,
What a
I
great
know.
story you have. Yeah,
I
I
yeah, nobody, I've never, nobody knows that. I've never ever had to tell that story ever. Yeah, I can't even remember a time that infomercials came up, and the fact that my family had a part in an infomercial, that
that's really
every
cool.
like anybody that was involved in infomercials back in the day know what Carlton Sheets was all
Oh,
about.
sure. Yeah, I was
And
involved.
yeah,
So they ran that infomercial. Your mom and dad were on it, and then they would have said, "Call this number for more information."
yeah,
I was the guy that would have answered the phone. So
gotcha.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
so that was really cool to have that. And mom and dad had 26 properties, and by the
that's
time I got
phenomenal.
into high school, I was old enough and knew how to swing a hammer with my dad. So my dad and I managed the maintenance on the property and properties, and mom did the rest. But then she fell ill, unfortunately, and took all of that information about those properties right with her when her brain went to shit
Oh no.
from the encephalopathy that she acquired. So my
Oh
dad and
wow.
I were stuck trying to figure out what to do with her having all the information that we couldn't. She didn't even know my name. So she had all that information locked in her brain that she couldn't get out. So we unfortunately had to offload all of our properties except for a few, and then I didn't. It was, in my opinion, it was part of why mom got sick, because of the stress involved with it, and I never went into real estate again because of it. So
Well, I'm sorry for your loss. I have to tell you though, that story is exactly why of the three things I said we might talk about today, and one of them was why you should always have your business prepared for
yeah,
sale, even if you never plan to sell it. That's exactly why, because I see that situation all the time in businesses where something happens
yeah.
and all of a sudden the business is in distress because it wasn't prepared. And that's one of the reasons I come on podcasts and I
Yeah,
try to convince people to do
great.
the things they need to do to take those steps so that that doesn't happen to them.
It's
I'm very
fantastic.
sorry
Well,
about
well,
your
that's a
mom.
great segue then. Who knew that a shared infomercial story would lead into a main topic that you want to talk about? So go ahead and explain that portion of it, and then we'll get into the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely do that. So, why should you always have your business ready for sale, even if you never plan to sell it? Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that can happen. So, on the negative side, there's what you talk. So, I talk about four D's and a B, and the four D's are divorce, disease, debt, and disagreements. So divorce is simple. You have a lot of businesses out there that maybe are run by spouses or something like that, and somebody gets divorced, and all of a sudden the business is part of a custody battle, and we see a lot of those. People aren't prepared for it. They don't think it's going to happen, but it does. Disease. That's what happened to your mom. I just had a business close a few weeks ago. It was a family run business. They were doing millions of dollars a year, and then two of the family members got cancer, and the business declined really rapidly, and I wound up having to I helped them get as much money as I possibly could, but the reality is it was pennies on the dollar from what they could have if their business was ready for sale at all times, no matter what. um, Debt, which is financial issues,
Right.
over borrowing oftentimes, or economic collapse, big time, uh, um, pandemics, etc. And then the last one is disagreements. Last D is disagreements, which is bad partnerships that go bad, which we see quite a bit. And then the B, there's four D's and a B. The B is burnout, and that's our number one. We see a whole lot of now. Nobody expects those things to happen, but the reality is they sometimes happen. And if your business is ready to go when those things happen, you're going to be in a lot better shape. You don't plan to be in a car accident, but you carry car insurance just in case something happens. You don't plan to get sick, but you have health insurance. You don't plan for your house to burn down, but you have homeowners insurance and fire insurance. And you need to plan to have something happen in your business, or have your business ready in case something does happen. Now, that's kind of the negative stuff. Let's talk about the positive stuff. If you right now are a business owner and you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and you're making way less money than you should be, then the goal of what I want to talk about today is, if you do the things that needed to take care of your business and have it ready for a new owner, and all the steps needed, guess what's going to happen? You're probably going to be working 20 hours a week and making twice as much money because your business is going to be in good shape. If it's appealing to another owner, it's going to be appealing to you. So the positive side of having your business ready for sale, even if you never plan to sell it, is your quality of life is going to be much, much better. And your podcast is called Ignition Path. You want to talk about an ignition. If you're in that place and you've been working your tail off and you're not making as much money you should, getting it ready for sale actually will be all the steps you need to have it run fantastically. Most people may or may not buy or sell one business in their entire life, but most people will sell several houses in their entire life. So to make this kind of easier, I often compare this to houses. So you're in a house for a while, you either need to upgrade or downgrade or something like that. You look around and say, well, I think we need to sell it. And you bring in a professional and they help you look around and fix the little things that are wrong and fresh coats of paint, new carpet, maybe some landscaping, all the way down to like putting chocolate chip cookies in the oven when the buyers come to look at it. It's called staging, right? You stage your house to get it ready for sale. It is not uncommon for people to look around, think they want to sell their house. The professional stager comes in, they tell everything they need to do to get the house ready. You fix it all up, you spruce it all up, you fix all those niggly little, screeching front doors and whatever else. And then people look around and go, this place isn't half bad. I think I'll just stay here. And it does happen. And the same
That's
thing
what
with a
that whole
business.
TV show's about. That Love It or List It. That's the whole premise of that TV.
There you go. I've never actually seen it, but thank you for
Oh my gosh.
validating that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's a great show. So
Yeah.
it's out of Canada, and what it is, it's about, the whole, one guy is finding them a new house to live in, a realtor, and then the other person, female, she's fixing up their place, and then at the very end they go, okay, you're gonna love it or list it. It's a great concept.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is fantastic. Well, guess what? You can do the same thing with your business.
That's awesome.
If you don't love your
Let's
business,
let's
then
well with
you
your connections, let's make that a reality show and let's go.
that would be fantastic.
I'll
I
be the
would love to do
voiceover
that.
for it in the intro,
Exactly. That's super great. So yeah, same concept basically. So if you get your business ready for sale, even if you never plan to sell it, you're going to love your business much better. You're going to be happy. You're going to be making more money. And again, you're protected from those unforeseen circumstances in life that might come and get you but you'll be much better prepared if you don't. So that's that topic a little bit. Like, crazy way to get there, but yeah, that's a message that and I don't
Hey,
benefit from that
nothing is
message.
straightforward when it comes to me and my interviews.
Well, I love it. I love it. However we get there, as long as we get the message out and get people's wheels turning, that's right. I
Right.
really want them to think about that. So
Exactly. So
yeah.
the other services you provide, so just walk me through how you the process of an entrepreneur and their business coming into your fold and what you do for them, if that leads into another area of your question of what you wanted to cover.
Sure. Yeah. So the other area we talk about is how to double your business without selling twice as much stuff. So we think about, let's say you've got a business that does, and it doesn't matter what it is. We'll just say it's a business does $1 million a year. Whether you're a plumber, whether you're an e-commerce, person, whether you're a corner store, whatever your business is, insurance agent, and you say to yourself, man, I really want to double my business. I want to make twice as much money, increase my revenues, increase my profits, maybe make it a little more stable, maybe hire a bigger staff so I can not have to work so hard, et cetera. And most people, when they think that, okay, if I'm going to do $1 million this year, I want to do $2 million next year, how do I get there? And the answer 99.9% of the time is I got to go sell twice as much stuff. The reality is that's really, really hard to do. Matter of fact, the odds are if you make a concerted effort to try and double your business in some period of time, the odds are you're actually going to make your business much less profitable because you're going to take bigger risks than you normally would. You have to hire more salespeople. You're going to have to put more money into marketing. And the more money you spend on marketing, the less efficient it gets, right? There's an old saying that says, half of my marketing dollars are wasted. I just don't know which half. So you're going to take bigger risks on marketing campaigns. And most people who really try and scale their business and ignite it to fast growth actually wind up losing money in the end because it's really difficult. If it was easy, anybody'd do it. But what I submit is that if you, instead of trying to market your way to doubling your business, you can do it through acquisitions. So what does that mean? Let's say that you are, let's say, what would you say is the industry most of your listeners are in? Is there any one or two industries that you know
Probably
of?
self-help or like personal business growth.
Personal growth. Okay, perfect. So let's say you've got somebody in personal business growth. They sell courses, they sell online.
Yeah.
They have maybe membership programs. They've got books. They've got things like that. Okay, great. So back to that example, they're doing $1 million a year, which is great. Or even if they're only doing 500,000, or let's say they're 2 million, but they say they want to double their business. It is much less risk to go out and identify another business that's similar to yours and doing the same size revenue of yours, the same profit as yours, and acquire them. And it could be a business that has 5, 10, 15 years of track record, existing revenue streams, existing customers, super stable. And, statistics say that 9 out of 10 new businesses fail, but 9 out of 10 existing businesses don't fail. So do you want to go to the 9 out of 10 and start something fresh? And odds are it's going to fail, or do you want to buy something solid? And so the cool thing is, if you got $1 million business now, you can buy $1 million business, put them together. Now you have a $2 million business. You're going to have efficiencies and economies of scale, so you're going to be more profitable because you're going to be able to have economies of scale of that whole business. And the really cool thing is, most people think, oh, okay, fine, Marty. If you got an extra $1 million laying around, fine, go buy $1 million business. No, couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is, you can buy a business that's equal to yours or even bigger for as little as 10% of that cost or even less. So I just closed a deal last week with a marketing agency who was doing really well. He had a great business. He bought another marketing agency that was actually bigger than him, twice as big as him. So he has tripled his business, doing multi-million dollars in revenue, and his entire out of pocket was only slightly over $20,000. So he will earn back the profits from that deal. He will earn back that 20-something thousand dollars literally in a couple of weeks, and from there it's pure profit. So those kind of opportunities are out there, and it's low risk. This was a business that had been in operation for 5 or 6 years. It's got existing long-term clients. It's got great cash flow, and now his team is growing, his business is growing, his profits are growing, and almost no cash outlay when it's all said and done. And that can be done with any business out there.
Wow. And those are businesses that are even as low as LLCs, or do they have to be S corps, or they have to be?
No, 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 no. So I'm talking small mainstream.
Yeah.
This is a guy in his bedroom, that literally a guy in his spare bedroom that just did this, making millions.
Oh,
Okay. So it doesn't have to be. One of the things that I really try to focus on is helping average everyday entrepreneurs leverage kind of Wall Street strategies, but for the little guy.
yeah.
You hear about mergers and acquisitions and you think of airlines and banks and things like that. No, it doesn't have to be that. It can be dry cleaners. It can be, professional development people. It can be air conditioning repair people. You name it. Any business can grow through acquisition with high leverage, low risk, and huge rewards.
Wow. So you would be the liaison between business A and that wants to buy a business B. Now, who finds that business B for business A?
So sometimes we work with clients who already have identified a couple of
Okay.
businesses they want to acquire. We help that process through, and put that together for them, make sure they're getting the right deal, getting their financing right, doing it all the best way. But a lot of our clients actually hire us from the beginning to create that strategy and say, okay, Marty, we're interested in this. We want to grow and we want to do acquisitions. But we don't know anything about it. How do we do that? And we can walk somebody through from the strategy to the concept to the funding, everything else, and then actually going out, finding those businesses, handling the negotiations, and then doing all the way through until that business is acquired and bolted onto our client's business. Yeah.
No, very cool. Very cool. So when it comes to before we make sure that I do want to say, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, follow. If anything that Marty is talking about today resonates with you, please send him a message. Of course, all of his stuff will be in the lower level there, in the description. He'll mention out verbally here too for all of you listening on audio, and it'll be in the notes on your audio app as well. But also, if you hear this and you say, hey, I know a guy that was trying to sell a business, share this with that guy or gal. So, please go ahead and don't forget about that easy easy button to press to share things out to the world to help get Marty's message out there and my podcast to help the entrepreneur. And that's exactly, when Marty and I first met, we talked about a few different things. The whole acquisition and entrepreneurial thing was really, I wasn't wrapping my head around it. So that was why I told him, I said, I can't wait to talk to you because it's going to help me understand what you do. And then, of course, we talked about some other things that could layer on inside of his business that I provide too. So, that's the one thing I love about podcasting is we have now met each other, and now I know someone who can do acquisitions for the little guy, and I can promote that and share that when I do run across other people as I go through my
Absolutely.
business. Or maybe not maybe one day when I'm ready to sell and retire, and in a few years, I'm 8 years away from real retirement for myself and my full-time job, but you never know, so when I want to retire and don't do anything and just cruise around the world all day and all night, that's when I'll sell my business, voiceover and podcast coaching. Who knows what I'll build up by that time. So
Yeah.
real quick, with that being said, go ahead and tell people how to get a hold of you, and then we'll tackle one more topic of your choice, and then we'll wrap things up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really easy to find. So my name is Marty Fahncke. His last name is spelled Fahncke. It's a very unique name. If you run into anybody else with that last name, I'm related to him. And I happen to be the only Marty Fahncke in the entire world. So I can't hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the only Kyle Goodnight spelled the way I do. There's another,
Really? Oh yeah,
yeah,
with the K in it.
with
That's a
the
little bit
K in it.
unique.
So there is another Kyle Goodnight that's spelled without the K, and I've met
Yep.
him online, and we've talked back and forth on Facebook because he's a real person, or at least he was proved to Facebook that he was
Plays
real.
one on TV.
Yeah, well, he proved to Facebook that he was real. Back in the early days of Facebook, you didn't have to prove you were real. So
Right.
now you do. But it's one of those things where I've talked to him, and you Google my name, I'm the top 15 people on Google with spelled it the proper way. I don't know what you get when you put it in the wrong way. Even when you do, because I did buy the domain without the K. So even if you type in without the K, you should fall at least something on that Google page should be me. So I can't hide as
Right.
well. You and I both know that we can't be assholes. We have to be genuine.
Exactly.
We have to be real. We have to be forthright, and we have to be, have the utmost integrity with what we do.
My point exactly. Yes,
Doesn't mean we
you're
don't
hitting the
make
nail on the head.
mistakes. Yeah, it doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes and
Well, I mean, speak for
error.
yourself. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm like Mary Poppins. I'm practically perfect in every way,
Mary
but
Poppins. Yeah. So, yeah, voiceover actor, I can slip into voices really quick. So,
there you go. Absolutely. But yeah,
but yeah.
yeah.
So
So I mean, I can be Googled. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content there, a lot of information that's valuable for business owners to
okay.
see that. And then my website is westboundroad.com. That's westboundroad.com. So easy to find either way, and love to just have a chat if somebody's thinking about growing their business through acquisitions. We can talk about that, what that looks like, and see whether it makes sense. If they're thinking about selling their business, I definitely want to talk to them about that, and we can get into a little bit more detail about that if you'd like, and then and anything in between. So love to catch up with people, love to help entrepreneurs. That's all I've been doing since 1999 is helping entrepreneurs grow and profit from their business, and that's my passion.
That's awesome. All right. So it just popped in my head. I love organicness like this. So I don't have anything structured when we come in other than I know your name and I know about a little bit about your business. So my next question, and we'll end on this just for something fun. So tell me about the smallest business. Oh, there's a fly going around. Tell us about the smallest business that you turned from peanuts to riches. Like what is one of the smallest businesses that you have one of the largest success stories about?
There's been several. I'll talk about a music business. So there was a business that there was a guy that created some sound frequency music that actually he was claiming could heal people, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. And he launched it and at a live launch party, and they sold like 300 sets of CDs at this live launch party, and then they put out a little survey and asked for testimonials, and like over 100 people wrote testimonials out of 300. That's phenomenal. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
read all the
That's
testimonials, and I was
33% ish. Yeah.
absolutely floored. I was absolutely blown away by these testimonials, and I'm like, there's something to this. And I started researching and I started studying, and I talked to this guy, and I'm like, okay, there's something real here. And so I I agreed to properly launch his business. So after researching and studying, there's two things that came to me. And I wrote the copy for this, but two things that came to me. Number one was when you go to watch a movie like Jaws, when that da-dum, da-dum, you feel your heart rate changes, your body
Does.
changes. When you Star Wars with the Darth Vader's
Yep.
theme again,
Dun,
it's
dun,
just like,
dun,
okay.
dun, dun, dun. Yep.
Now that's surface level frequency. Everything has frequency. Okay, your body is frequency. It's frequency that's holding your electrons together, your molecules together. Frequency, electrical, all that is a. But here's the story I came up with. If we got into a time machine and went back into like the mid 1970s or early 1970s, and you came over to my house and we're chatting, and you say, are you hungry? And you, well, yeah, I could eat a little something. I said, well, I got some meatloaf in the fridge. I'll warm it up for us. Okay, leftover meatloaf. Well, if this is 1974, 1975, how would I warm that meatloaf up? I'd open the oven
Oven, yeah.
and I'd put it on 350 and I'd
Microwaves
put the
weren't
meatloaf
quite
in.
around yet. I
Right.
got our first microwave in 1978-ish. Yeah.
We got ours in 1979. And so you're figuring out. Now, if I said to you in 1975, hey, Kyle, I'm going to warm us up some meatloaf for some leftover meatloaf for dinner. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in this magic box and I'm going to use frequencies to I'm going to embed these frequencies into the meatloaf. The frequencies are going to excite the water molecules. The friction from the excitement of the water molecules is going to cause heat, and the food is going to come out hot. And you can stick your hand inside this magic box when it's not on, and you won't feel any heat whatsoever, but the meatloaf will come out hot. What would you have
Yeah.
thought?
Oh, my, you would have thought you were like, we need to get you admitted.
Exactly. But the reality is we use frequencies all day long. Your phone runs on frequencies. You and I, our voices are frequencies. You're a
Absolutely.
voiceover artist. You change the frequencies of the wavelengths of the sound of your voice to make different sounds. So everything is frequency. All right. Long story short,
Mm,
I wrote those two things up into marketing copy. And Black Friday of 2015, I sent that copy out in an email and I sold $300,000 worth of product. And that business went on to do over $25 million in revenue.
that's awesome.
That was,
I actually had a brainwave entrainment specialist come on my other podcast.
yeah,
Maury Zelkovich.
I don't know him,
So
but there's something to it. And a lot of people think it's
yep.
woo woo, but it's
Well,
not.
and the one thing about him, because I asked him, because I had him on my podcast, and it does stuff for, he was suicidal and some other things. People can tune into the Elevate podcast, shameless plug, my other podcast,
There you
which
go.
is
A
based around
little cross promotion.
yeah, a little. It's based around first responder mental wellness and mental health and mental resilience. So I have alternative ways of mental health coping on that podcast. Once in a blue moon, they cross, and I get people on both podcasts doing a business. And like Maury, he will come on the Ignition Path podcast and talk about his before he became a business that sells audio entrainment for mental health reduction and mental health therapy. He had a path of entrepreneurship that he got there. So he'll come on this podcast eventually as well.
Yeah.
But so they do cross over once in a while.
I
And
do want to touch on something though. I talked
sure.
about the numbers because we're entrepreneurs, so it's all about the revenue, right? I
Yep.
want to touch on something that $25 million in sales. What that meant though is that I literally helped tens of thousands of people get a better night's sleep.
Right.
I helped tens of thousands of people reduce their stress. We found out that it impacts pets in a huge way. I helped
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of pets who, especially around the 4th of July, and we're just coming
Yep.
through that season, a lot of dogs and cats are freaked out by fireworks. When you play this musical frequencies that we had, pets just calm right down
Yep.
and they don't get scared. They don't have anxiety. So
Yep.
I help people sleep. I help them with
Yep.
stress and anxiety. I help them with their relation. And so for me, it's not just about the money. It's about what is the change and the
Yeah.
good you're bringing to the world. And that's the
100%.
biggest impact is I know I helped
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people around the world have a better life because of launching that little business from
Yeah.
300 units in a private launch party to getting it around the world.
That's awesome. That's a great story. And here you're talking to someone who has had another guest on that talks about the frequency and general of everything, the abundancy, healing, that frequencies, we're frequency people. So,
Mhm.
not to get medical on this podcast because it's all about business, but it's, if you're hearing this and you're like, what are they talking about? Have that same aha moment that Marty had back in the early 2000s with this other business, and find out that it's, that it's true. So the one thing that he did tell me, and then we'll get going, is I asked him if I could put in my AirPods and do it. And he said, well, the AirPods is that little bitty hole where sound comes out.
You want
You
it
want
to
it either full
completely.
room,
Mhm.
or at minimum, you want big ear cups to get those frequencies to work into the psyche. So yeah.
Yep, totally.
All right, Marty, thank you so much for coming on the Ignition Path podcast. I hope it was fun for you. It was more
Yeah.
informational for me than I ever expected with what you're doing for entrepreneurs in that path. And once again, everybody, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Send this off to people you may know. If any of this sounded familiar, that someone else may need to hear this. And until next time, this is Kyle Goodknight with Ignition Path podcast. And thanks again, Marty, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.